Good afternoon, everyone. I think we're going to start. So whoever is joining in afterwards can just, this session will be recorded, so we can all have a copy of it afterwards. Everyone, my name is Layla AlAlawi. I am an associate in the corporate structuring team in the Tamimi Bahrain office. So by way of brief introduction, you may all already know us. Tamimi & Company is the largest full-service law firm in the Middle East and North MENA region, with 17 offices in 10 different countries, over 3 decades of collective legal experience. We work for a simple purpose, and that's our client success. So we're delighted to be holding this panel discussion today on the legal developments and updates for companies in the GCC, with a specific focus on Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, UAE, specifically DIFC and ADGM, and the free zones, and Qatar for the first episode of this series. I'm pleased to introduce our panelists today, starting with Yara Frotan. Yara is an associate here in the corporate structuring team in Bahrain. She works closely with our international and regional and domestic clients, providing assistance in setting up commercial entities in Bahrain, as well as advising on regional and group restructurings, and providing advice on matters concerning the Bahrain Commercial Companies law. So Yara, pleasure having you with us today.
Thank you, Layla. Hi, everyone. Pleasure being here.
Very good. Next up is Somaia Bugis. Somaia is an associate in our corporate structuring team based in Riyadh. Somaia's practice focuses on transactions and business entity structurings, mergers and acquisitions, compliance and corporate governance, and foreign investment licensing in Riyadh. Somaia, it's lovely having you with us today.
Thank you, Layla, and hi, everyone.
Next, we have Joyce Abboud. Joyce is an associate in the corporate structuring team in Qatar. Her practice focuses on the general corporate matters, corporate structuring, and advisory work in Qatar. She regularly advises clients on corporate legal matters, guiding them through the structuring and restructuring process in Qatar, as well as overseeing the company incorporation and liquidations and preparing the corporate documents for the same. So Joyce, very, very happy to have you with us.
Thank you, Layla. Hi, everyone.
Next up is Noff Al-khafaji. Noff is a senior counsel in our corporate structuring team in Dubai. She has experience in advising on all types of corporate and restructuring matters, both within and outside of the free zones, but her particular expertise is in the DIFC, the Dubai International Financial Center, including formation of the entities, group reorganizations, advising on optimal corporate structures, to conduct the commercial activities at all stages. Noff, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Layla. Pleasure being here. Thanks.
Perfect. And last but certainly not least, from our Abu Dhabi office, we have Nour Srour. Nour is a senior associate in the corporate structuring team based in Abu Dhabi. His expertise revolves around advising clients in relation to foreign investment and the beneficial ownership regime in the UAE, with specific focus on Abu Dhabi global markets. So that's the ADGM. Nour regularly advises on regulatory issues, corporate restructurings, and closely collaborates with governmental and quasi-governmental entities on regulatory strategies. So Nour, it's a pleasure having you here with us as well.
Thank you, Layla. Happy to be part of the panel discussion.
This is great. It's great. So welcome to all our distinguished speakers and to all the attendees. It's great to see many of you actually logging into this webinar panel discussion. We're looking forward to having an interesting cross-jurisdictional conversation regarding the new legal updates and trends in the GCC. The focus is to give you all a brief overview of the updates and for you guys to keep in mind for your businesses in the region. So what we're hoping to do in the course of this panel is to engage in a conversation where we will be going over some burning questions that are typically raised by our clients for each jurisdiction. We will also be taking questions from those of you logged in at the end via the chat box. So we'll leave about 10 minutes at the end for that, okay? So starting straight into it, full steam ahead, and very close to home, Yara, we've had many developments to the laws of Bahrain over the past year or so, and there's been a lot of talk actually about new upcoming laws. Can you give us just an overview of the developments?
Yes, you're absolutely right. So over the recent years, we've seen a number of big amendments to major laws in Bahrain. We've seen a lot of repeals and replacements of certain laws. So what we generally try to do is speak with the relevant stakeholders in Bahrain, including those that play a role in issuing the new laws or drafting amendments to these laws. And so more recently, we've had indications that a couple of key changes are on their way to Bahrain. Some of these changes are confirmed, some of them are at very initial stages, but these generally include codifying directors' duties, changes to the end of service gratuity system, corporate income tax, and potential introduction of a new AI law.
That's great, Yara. So in terms of the director's duties that you've mentioned, what's the current position and how is it envisaged to be amended in Bahrain?
Thank you. So generally right now, directors' duties are governed by the Commercial Companies Law. All companies in Bahrain need at least one director, in some cases more than one director. But generally, the current position under the Commercial Companies Law is the general understanding is that the directors are empowered with the day-to-day running and operations of the entity. And then obviously that can be limited by the shareholders. The powers can be limited by the shareholders, but there is not a concise list of clear duties of directors in Bahrain currently. So the Commercial Companies Law does not have a codified set of duties. What we do currently is we kind of extract the duties from the different articles of the Commercial Companies Law. So a lot of times we look at the articles in the Commercial Companies Law on penalties. They don't expressly refer to duties, but they refer to the imposition of penalties where a director engages in a certain act or fails to engage in a certain act. So that's how we gather directors' duties currently. But based on our discussions with the relevant stakeholders, we anticipate changes to the Commercial Companies Law, an amendment that kind of codifies the set of duties that provides us with a list of clear duties for directors. So that's a change in the positive route.
That's actually very good to hear because we've seen a lot of clients ask about those specific queries. You've also mentioned employment-related updates. So what are we expecting moving forward?
Yeah, there have been recent changes to the end of service gratuity system. So this has already come into force late last year. There's been an amendment to the payment of leaving indemnity to non-Bahrainis that work in the private sector in Bahrain. So currently, before the introduction to this change is the employers used to pay leaving indemnity directly to the employees upon the employee's termination or resignation. But what this new resolution has brought about, the most fundamental change, is that the payment of the leaving indemnity to the non-Bahraini employee requires that the employer registers with the social insurance organization the end of service entitlements for all of these employees on a monthly basis. So what happens now is that instead of the employee receiving the end of service indemnity directly from the employer, they'll have to go to the social insurance organization and apply through them to receive their end of service entitlements. But in terms of the rate and you know the entitlements, that stays the same as prior to the introduction of this resolution.
Yeah, that's very interesting because the employment aspect's always a concern for businesses in our region, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
globally, to be fair, with the majority. You mentioned a few other things, Yara, regarding the corporate income tax and AI. Can you briefly touch on them as well?
Yeah, of course. So maybe one of the more significant changes And one that I want to speak about is the introduction to corporate income tax. So corporate income tax was introduced in the UAE last year. So it's no surprise really that Bahrain is going to be introducing it this year as well. There's been recent parliamentary discussions between the National Bureau for Revenue and the Minister of Finance and National Economy, and that this change is definitely coming soon. Our discussions with the stakeholders suggest that there would be potentially 2 laws issued, one for state-owned entities and then one for other entities, but the details are really still not that clear. The laws are still being drafted, but we can expect them by Q4 2024 or Q1 2025.
Yeah, I believe a lot of clients are looking at that in the region. I know that in Bahrain, we've seen a lot of conglomerate entities setting up and taking advantage of the lack of corporate income tax in Bahrain.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I think that was the main drive for conglomerates to set up their businesses here, is the fact that there isn't really any corporate income tax currently. But then I think this brings up the biggest questions on all of our minds, which is, what is the tax rate? And the answer is, we still don't know. We don't know yet. The tax rate in the UAE right now is around 9%. And so generally UAE is used as a benchmark for Bahrain. But then, like you mentioned, a lot of conglomerates have set up their businesses in Bahrain because there is no corporate income tax. So we'd hope and expect it to be competitive, but generally we don't expect a huge difference from the UAE. We don't think it would be much lower or much higher, but again, it's still being studied and considered. So that's for corporate income tax. And then if I'll just briefly brush on potential new AI law. So it's still currently under consideration. There isn't much indication on what the law would include or when it would be published, but as part of this webinar, I just want to brush on how a potential AI law could impact businesses in Bahrain, or businesses in general even. The main focus of these kinds of laws is that they're designed to cut the risks of AI from growing at an increased pace, so at a pace where companies really can't keep up. So these kinds of laws regulate that, give companies time to keep up. And in terms of impact, generally what we keep in mind is that companies would need to adopt suitable frameworks, put them in place, implement risk management systems, data governance, and then obviously technical documentation, but then still, of course, there would be an element of human oversight required, we'd assume, for accuracy purposes. And so monitoring systems would also probably be need to be put in place. Cybersecurity will be as important as ever. And then potentially maybe there would be conformity assessments that would need to be undertaken.
Those are all great points, Yara. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. On to our neighbors in Saudi Arabia. Somaia, with all the developments in Saudi over the past few years and the influx of foreign investment, can you please elaborate on the recent changes in law and what we're expecting moving forward?
Sure. Thank you, Layla, for the introduction and for this opportunity to tell you more about the recent changes in Saudi Arabia. So as you know, Saudi Arabia is one of the largest markets in the region, and it is becoming an attractive jurisdiction to have business in. And according to the transformation witnessed in Saudi as part of Vision 2030, we have seen many initiatives to expand the businesses in KSA, whether owned by local business owners or foreign investors. And in our firm, we have seen a massive number of foreign investors being established in Saudi Arabia and in so many different sectors, such as the logistics, the manufacturers, healthcare, education, and so many more. And I want to talk about one of the major points I want to talk about today is the recent development of the companies law. So as we have seen, a new companies law been issued last year, and it is already enforceable in Saudi Arabia. And this this new companies law provides more flexibility and covers additional types of entities such as the nonprofit organization, professional companies, allowing family businesses to conclude their family charter, to regulate the ownership of the business, distribution of dividend, and also the governance of the company. It is also worth mentioning that a lot of governmental services are now being digitalized and accessed online via the relevant portals. And recently, we have seen the Ministry of Commerce issued a new online portal named Saudi Business Center. We refer to it as SBC, in which enabled the local business owners and foreign investors who own companies to apply for their articles of association through the SBC portal, and also obtaining the notarized articles through the SBC portal. And this step has made the incorporation of the companies easier and more time efficient. Also, to keep pace with the technical developments, the new companies law also allowed attending assemblies online and vote on decisions electronically using modern technological means. And I also want to move forward to my next topic, which is special economic zones. You may heard about the special economic zones. We refer to it as SEZ in KSA. So the purpose of the SEZ is that it tailors an environment that creates a supportive ecosystem that will allow the investors from across the world to establish their business in these zones and expand rapidly. We have so many different special economic zones around KSA. For example, we have King Abdullah Economic City, Cake. It's located near to Jeddah City at the Red Sea, which is a very strategic location for trade. And Cake focuses on specific sectors such as the supply chain and pharmaceuticals. We also have another zone called Cloud Computing Special Economic Zone. It's located in the capital city, Riyadh, and it focuses on the cloud computing businesses. And one of the recent zones we have seen also a high demand on is the Special Integrated Logistics Zone, SILZ. It is located as well in Riyadh, and it focuses on the logistics businesses. We have seen a lot of demand from foreign investors to establish their businesses on these zones, and all of these zones have their own flexible regulations and their own procedures to obtain the investment license. And it also has special incentives such as the corporate income tax reductions, the variety of withholding tax exemptions, deferred custom duties on goods, VAT exemptions based on the sector, and also the Saudization rate.
It sounds like many synergies with the UAE with their free zones. So that actually sounds very interesting, Somaia. The buzz talk in the region for Saudi is the regional headquarters regulations. So can you tell us just a bit more on what you've experienced with clients for the same?
Yeah, sure. So we have seen a lot of demand from the foreign investors on the regional headquarter establishment in Saudi Arabia. So the Ministry of Investment of Saudi Arabia, together with the Royal Commission for Riyadh City, implemented the regional headquarter program with the primary objective of transforming Saudi Arabia into a major global economy, part of the country's impressive Vision 2030 initiative. So the RHQ program is open for companies operating across all industries and sector, and KSA has seen a significant interest in companies seeking to establish their RHQs in the Saudi market. So the RHQ program enables the foreign investors to submit their bids for any public tender with the public entities and the government. There has been guidelines issued recently in relation to the RHQ, including some exemptions for the RHQ requirements, such as contracts which is not exceeding the amount of 1 million Saudi riyals. As you know, the RHQ is becoming a requirement starting from 1st of January 2024, and it has also so many attractive incentives for the foreign investors, such as the Saudization, the tax incentives, and also easy process of incorporation of the RHQ with the support of the Ministry of Investment. And also about 2 months ago, tax incentives rules has been issued by the Zakat Tax Customs and Authority and shall now be enforceable. And one of the major incentives is that there will be zero corporate income tax on the eligible income, and also 0% withholding tax. And the tax incentives are given for 30 years to the RHQs to be renewed. And also, according to the tax incentives rules, the RHQ shall maintain its economic substance requirement to be eligible for the tax incentives. And one of them is having at least one manager residing in Saudi Arabia. And also the RHQ is actually funding the operational expenses of the regional headquarters. So as you can see, we have seen a lot of major growth for the companies around the country and rapid development of the laws. And I hope this gives an idea of our current laws. And please feel free if you have any question.
Yeah, no, that's very insightful, Somaia, actually, because we see a lot of synergies there with the updates or the current laws in the UAE and with the free zones there. And then also in terms of Qatar, I know that there's a big focus on foreign investment. So Joyce, actually in Qatar, we have heard that there's a great push for this. So what are you seeing in the markets in Qatar at the moment?
So hi again, everyone. During those past few years and until today, Qatar's doors are wide open to all types of businesses and is offering opportunities for international investors looking to make their mark in Qatar and in the Middle East. And this is especially through Qatar's licensing authorities, which are the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Qatar Financial Center, Qatar Free Zones Authority, Qatar Science and Technology Park, and Media City Qatar, which we see more and more active. So my intervention today will be divided into 3 topics: the foreign investment within the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, the combating of concealment of non-Qataris practicing non-permitted activities in Qatar, and the new startup platform. So first, foreign investment companies established within the Ministry of Commerce and Industry are all the rage during the past few years and until now. This is why there are 2 interesting points that I would like to talk about. First, after issuing the law number 1 of 2019, as you may know, foreign investors may own more than 49% of the share capital of a company and up to 100%. Sure, an approval must be granted by the Trade Exchange Development and Investment Promotion Department at the ministry. And recently, when we refer to foreign investors, we exclude GCC nationals. They are now treated like Qatari nationals and will not require this special approval. However, if the investor is a GCC company, which at least one of its directly or indirectly shareholder is a non-GCC national, in this case, the company will not be considered as GCC company and will have to go through the foreign investment process. So like the direct and indirect ownership of the company must be GCC nationals. So I think this is an interesting point to know for GCC region. Second, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry is making the whole process of establishing a presence in Qatar smoother. So some requirements are no longer needed. And I will cite 2 examples. The business plan, because before companies needed to submit a detailed business plan, now it was replaced by a simpler format requiring simpler estimates. So no need for details and justifications. And second, there is no minimum capital required anymore. Before, they used to require 1 million 1 million Qatari riyals as a minimum capital. Now there's no minimum capital. However, the capital must be determined in a way that is logically compared to the the size of the business and the activity. We have seen so far approvals on capital of around 200,000 Qatari riyals. So this is also a good initiative from the ministry. There is also 3 important points to consider when an investor wants to establish a presence in Qatar. So first, they have to check if the activity is permitted for foreign investor. So in Q4 last year, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry issued an official list of activities that are permitted for non-Qataris. And it almost covers all activities except for example, banking, insurance, and gas, oil and gas. This list is exclusive, and the description of the activities are also exclusive. So they really have to check if the potential activities are within this list. Second point to consider is if the investor is a foreign company. So the activity of the foreign company must be similar to the activity of the company that will be established in Qatar. It doesn't have to be the same terms, but the same type, for example, trading or engineering. So it has to be in the same type of activities. And third point is the tax. So for foreign investment companies, there is a 10% income tax, which is payable annually on the net profits made by the company. Till now, there is no tax on individuals, which is the concern of the shareholders, the managers, the members of the board of directors. We see it coming, like there are discussions that they might introduce tax on individuals, but till now, this is the only imposed tax. So I will move to my second point, which is law number 3 of 2023 regarding combating the concealment of non-Qataris practicing commercial, economic, and professional activities in violation of the law. So basically, this law aims to find a certain balance between allowing foreign investors to establish a presence in Qatar, but also to protect activities that are limited to Qatari nationals and Qatari companies. So basically here, non-Qataris may not practice any activity, and I refer to the list of activities that was issued by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So they only can carry out activities that are permitted for non-Qataris. Second, Qatari nationals are prohibited to facilitate such illegal practice. And I mentioned the scenario of establishing a company with 51% Qatari partner. So this is also a limitation for nominee shareholder in such scenario. And third, the distribution of dividends must be in conformity with what is written in the memorandum of incorporation. So they cannot have a side agreement on a different distribution of dividends, which will also limit the effect of the shareholders agreement in such scenario. So this is basically to protect certain activities not to be undertaken by non-Qataris. And I will end my intervention with the Startup Qatar platform, which is a platform launched this year, and it's really interesting platform. So this platform provides all the information any person or investor, startups or SMEs that they need to know about the business requirement, the options they have, if they are looking for potential partners, if they are looking for funding, collaboration, or even government grants. So they can really access to this platform, and they will have all the answers. And they also introduced an AI assistant, which will pop up on the right of the screen if you look into the platform. And it is trained to answer all these questions. So I think it is worth taking a look at this platform, as it is really interesting. So this is for Qatar.
That's honestly a couple of great points there. I see a lot of similarities with Bahrain and perhaps even Saudi in terms of the commercial activities lists and even in terms of your nominee sort of regulations there. There's a couple of points that a lot of clients are looking into in the region with regards to that, specifically with the foreign ownership restrictions. So that's actually important, and it's good to see that a lot of AI is being incorporated in a lot of our portals and so on and so forth. So really, thank you so much for that update. It sounds promising. Noff, actually, in the UAE, items on foreign investment have been long established for a while now, and we hear that the focus currently is quite so much on the digital assets and innovation side of things. So it would be great to hear a bit more about what's going on in the DIFC.
Absolutely. Thank you, Layla. So just as a bit of background for those of you that are not aware, the DIFC was one of the first financial free zones in the UAE, and the first free zone in the UAE to have its own dedicated courts. which were established in 2005. And with that level of maturity and offering means that the DIFC attracted a lot of foreign direct investment, which adds to the credibility and growth of the free zone. And with this new, the increase in investors coming into the DIFC itself is constantly evaluating their laws, amending and enacting new laws in order to be in line with market opportunities and future innovations. And one of those new laws is the introduction of the digital asset law, which was introduced in March 8th this year. So a digital asset is a growing asset class, and it contributes, a huge scope of market opportunities and future investment. And so there was a little bit of uncertainty in relation to the legal nature of a digital asset. And so the introduction of the law helped to mitigate that uncertainty. And the law aims to categorize the legal definition of a digital asset and sets out how a digital asset can be controlled, transferred, and also dealt with by parties. So the real main aim is to just, provide a greater level of certainty and security for digital asset investors and also users of digital assets. So that was a key introduction. Another item to just discuss, it's fairly new, but it's just worth mentioning, was the introduction of the Innovation Hub. So the Innovation Hub, which was introduced by DIFC, is an ecosystem, a tech-focused ecosystem for tech companies and companies in the innovation sphere to have a workspace and a license that enables them to do what they want to do, but also at a subsidized fee. So the typical fee for a private company limited by shares in DIFC that doesn't fall within the category of an innovation license is around $20,000 whereas an innovation license is much lower than that, and it's around $1,500, which is a great incentive for these startups. And the DIFC recognizes that startups although they do face some difficulties in the beginning, and it's a good accelerator program for them to be in the same sort of co-working environment, because these innovation licenses are able to benefit from the co-working space as well, which is another great incentive. And as most of you are aware, DIFC is constantly evolving. It is, on top of its game when it comes to issuing new laws, keeping on top of best business practices across the world. And so there's constantly amendments to laws, new laws coming into the picture. And, we're more than happy to dedicate, maybe another webinar, perhaps client alerts, in order to keep you all up to date with the developments of DIFC, which are constantly evolving.
Thank you so much, Noff. It's great to hear that the DIFC is focusing on these developments. I see a lot of synergies there, in terms of a lot of our jurisdictions are creating these ecosystems or zones that create these incentives for businesses to thrive in our region. So it's great to see that the DIFC continues to do so, even though it's a well-known and established free zone in itself. So Nour, for Abu Dhabi, we note that the Abu Dhabi global market, the ADGM, has been, a long-standing free zone in the UAE, utilized by many businesses. So what are the leading updates for the ADGM at the moment?
Yeah, as you rightly mentioned, Layla, so since its establishment, ADGM has operated under the jurisdiction of Al-Maraya Island. However, on the 24th of April 2023, following the issuance of the UAE Cabinet Resolution number 41 of 2023, ADGM expanded its jurisdiction to include Reem Island as well. Now, prior to passing the Cabinet Resolution, Reem Island was governed by the UAE and federal Abu Dhabi laws. Following the expansion, the ADGM's legal and regulatory framework became applicable in Reem Island. Now, the first question that comes to mind is, why are ADGM expanding their jurisdiction? Now, one of the main reasons is that the occupancy rates at the towers located in Al-Maraya Island rose to 99% compared with 75% back in 2022. This indicated a clear need for the expansion of the ADGM. Now, this expansion aligns with Abu Dhabi's economic vision, emphasizing the importance of its financial sector and the diversification strategy. Now, the objectives that ADGM are wishing to achieve out of this expansion is, one, the economic diversification, as I mentioned, which aligns with Abu Dhabi's plan to make the financial sector a bigger part of the Emirates economy. And with more space under its jurisdiction, ADGM can accommodate more businesses and create a bigger financial center. And just a fun fact, was post-expansion, ADGM becomes geographically the largest free zone in the MENA region, which is a significant milestone for a free zone established in 2015. Now, another question that comes to mind directly is what happens to the existing businesses in Reem Island? Reem Island is not an empty island. It's a fully operational island with businesses that operates in every single sector, whether it's the banking sector, construction, education. So it's important to note that the existing businesses in Reem exist in various legal forms, whether by way of branches, limited liability companies, or public joint stock companies. Now, the ADGM board, they approved a transitional period that ends on the 31st December of this year. This will allow all entities that have physical presence in Reem Island to meet the relevant requirements of ADGM's legal and regulatory framework. Now, all the businesses in Reem will not incur additional expenses. ADGM waived any registration fees for the businesses in Reem Island to obtain an ADGM commercial license until the 31st of October 2024. Now, as I mentioned, there's several legal forms of those businesses that exist in Reem. Some of them are companies, the others are branches. So the options that are available for companies differ than branches. I'll start with the points regarding the companies. So all the existing companies, whether in a form of a public or private, the ADGM regulations allows companies to migrate and redomicile to ADGM, subject to the original jurisdiction allowing the migration to outside this jurisdiction. The question raised here is, how is it legally permissible, knowing that the UAE companies commercial law do not allow redomiciliation, whether to the mainland or outside the mainland? One of the provisions in the ADGM's regulation that covers this point is, upon receiving satisfactory evidence from the original jurisdiction showing the consent to migrate to another jurisdiction, the ADGM will approve such continuation. Therefore, like the licensing authority in the mainland, which is the Department of Economic Development, in order to mitigate this point, it is issuing on an exclusive basis only to Reem Island businesses no objection certificates, allowing them to migrate to ADGM. Therefore, if another business is located in the mainland somewhere other than Reem Island, they would not be able to migrate into ADGM. So we got this question a lot. If I already exist in the mainland, can I take advantage of that? No. So basically the DED is keeping it exclusive to Reem Island businesses. Now, once the entity migrates into the ADGM, the entity will no longer be registered with the DED, and it will be governed by the regulatory framework of ADGM. Another important point here is that the company that migrates will maintain its history by having the same date of incorporation. So it's not going to be considered a new company. It will be the same entity with the sole difference of being governed under ADGM rules in comparison to the UAE company's commercial law. Now, what if the company doesn't want to be governed by ADGM and doesn't want to be part of the ADGM rules and regulations? Well, the only available option then is to relocate outside Reem Island. So the DED entity may continue to be registered with the DED. However, in this case, it is mandatory for the DED entity to obtain a physical office in the Abu Dhabi mainland, which consists of the areas that are excluding Reem Island and Al Maria Island. Now, again, one of the key points to be discussed while the company assesses its option whether to migrate into ADGM or relocate outside Reem Island is, one, the employment arrangements with their staff, because if the entity migrates, then the company will be required to arrange a new employment contracts pursuant to the ADGM employment regulations. Therefore, like discussion of end of service benefits, whether the company wishes to settle them or transfer them to the ADGM entity, all the employment arrangement must be settled. In addition to that, the residency visas will remain valid. However, upon renewal of the visas, they would need to be renewed through the ADGM platform and not through the system of the Ministry of Human Resources, which used to govern all the companies in the mainland. Now, another point which is raised in this discussion is ADGM have the same, does the ADGM have the same activities available in DED? Will I be able to conduct the same activities? Now, for that purpose, ADGM released an activity mapping table, which is available on their official website, which shows the relevant activity code in ADGM in comparison with the DED's business activity list. Now, it's important to note that there are certain activities which are governed by external authorities as well. So, for example, like schools will be governed by the relevant authority in addition to the Ministry of Education. So the ADGM are liaising with such external authorities in order to ensure that smooth transition and not impacting the operations of the existing companies while migrating into ADGM. Now, as I mentioned, since the businesses exist in different legal forms, how does it impact branches in comparison to companies? So from a legal perspective, a branch is an extension of a parent company. And by that, it doesn't have a separate legal personality. Therefore, branches cannot benefit from the option to choose continuation and must register a new branch, or if they wish to change the legal form into a new entity in ADGM, if they wish to maintain their presence in Reem Island. So this means they will need to apply for a new registration process. And once the ADGM branch is established, the applicant must deregister its current branch with the DED. Now, a common question here is whether an ADGM company can provide services to clients in the mainland, because the main reason why a lot of those businesses registered their companies or branches in Reem Island was in order to provide their services onshore. Now, the Abu Dhabi global market, the ADGM and the Department of Economic Development have entered into an agreement earlier that allows certain ADGM companies to get a second license from the DED, which is known as the dual license. Now, this second license enables them to legally operate and serve clients in the regular part of Abu Dhabi, which is the mainland. And importantly, such businesses do not need to have a separate physical office on the mainland. So it's the same license. However, they will be able to operate in the mainland through their ADGM office. And the condition for that is that the entity must be registered in the ADGM first. So once a company is established in ADGM, it will be allowed to apply for the dual license. So if a company already exists in the mainland, it wouldn't provide the dual license in ADGM. It's only the other way around. So technically, in conclusion, the expansion of ADGM to Reem Island is a significant development that offers new opportunities and challenges for businesses in Abu Dhabi. Whether you're an existing business in Reem or a new business looking to set up in ADGM, you need to be aware of the legal and regulatory implications. And I hope this brief overview has given whoever is attending the panel just some useful insights on the ADGM expansion and how it can benefit their business.
Many thanks, Nour. Really, the increased diversification and capacity of the ADGM is definitely an impressive move forward, and it's been on a lot of people's minds in the region, I believe. So it's great to hear all of the updates there. So with an eye on time, we have about 12 minutes of the hour left. I'd like to sort of pass the mic to the attendees for, to ask any questions in the chat box. So perhaps not pass the mic over, but anyone with a question, just kindly click on the chat box and insert your questions. I note that we've already gotten a few. So just to inform everyone, if we don't get through your questions, there'll be sort of a document circulated later with the top questions and our responses to the same. So I note that we have a question for Saudi here. Let me just pull it up. The question is, can an LLC company have a virtual office location or any working location option other than the classical physical office? Somaia, I believe this is for you.
Yeah, so basically each entity should has its own physical office, and a municipality license will be required to be obtained after the registration certificate. So it is always a requirement to have a physical registered office in here. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you, Somaia. Joyce, they need a reminder on what's the Qatar's platform again, the name of it, and what it does.
Okay, so it is Startup Qatar. This is the name of the platform where they can find any information related to how to establish a company in Qatar, business in Qatar, and what are the options.
That's great. Thank you so much, Joyce. I believe there's a question for the UAE. Just let me pull it up there. One second. Okay, so the UAE questions, that's for the ADGM. As the Reem Island has recently been included under the ADGM regulations, branches currently located in Reem Island who cannot benefit from continuation process and are subject to new registration to obtain their ADGM licenses. Are there any updates to allow for branches to benefit from the continuation process? I believe you've mentioned it, Nour, but if you can just reiterate, that would be great.
Sure. So as I mentioned, the continuation process is limited only for companies, since in order to migrate from a jurisdiction to another, the entity must have a legal personality, and a branch, since it's an extension of a parent company, it wouldn't be able to do so. So there's no further updates from ADGM regarding that. It's more a statutory point. And yeah, so until now, companies can migrate. Branches must register a new branch in ADGM.
I believe the second part of that question, Nour, is can a branch existing in Reem Island but remaining under the DED license as until December 2024 be converted to a company in Abu Dhabi mainland?
Actually, this is one of the solutions or the alternatives that can be taken into consideration. That's actually a good question. So a branch in the mainland can convert to become a limited liability company prior to migration into ADGM. So this process already exists and is available in the UAE Companies Commercial Law. So if a branch converted into a limited liability company, then once the limited liability company exists in the DED, it would be able to apply for the continuation to ADGM and benefit from the redomicile.
That's very interesting. I do hope the person who raised that question is still online and has gotten that. Either way, we'll send a document around, with additional items there. Let's see here. For the UAE, I think Noff, this is for Dubai. Is there any potential legislation to allow Dubai free zone entities to have a mainland license to enable the free zone entities to perform Dubai mainland activities as well?
Yeah, so there are some free zones that allow for a dual license, and they are existing, DIFC being one of them. It depends on the particulars, what the activity is, and is a commercial permission required. So it is feasible. It just depends on case by case.
That's perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Noff. Hold on. Let's see. There's a few others just popping up now. I'm just trying to get ones that are similar to each other. Joyce, in Qatar, in the context of the anti-concealment law, are there any risks with respect to the historical nominee arrangements where the local shareholder may claim past profits proportionate to his shareholding? Or what can companies do to clean up the past with the nominee agreements that they've had in place?
Yeah, so here the main risk is that in case of conflict, the courts will apply what is mentioned in the Memorandum of Incorporation, and they will grant it like kind of superiority over the shareholders agreement in relation to nominee agreements and to dividends distribution. So what we usually advise is to mention in the Memorandum of Incorporation how the real dividends are being distributed, because it doesn't have to be the same percentage as the share distribution. So maybe the Qatari partner may only receive 5% of the profits. So it is better if it is mentioned in the Memorandum of Incorporation. And if like the company is undertaking activities that are permitted to foreign investors, so maybe it's better to transfer all the shares to the foreign investor and proceed with the foreign investment company.
Thanks, Joyce. No, that sounds great in terms of cleaning up the past and putting it into a legally valid way forward for Qatar. For Bahrain, Yara, the indemnity SIO update. What is the exact process? When are employers supposed to transfer the indemnity accrual to SIO? And is there any specific penalty that would be incurred to the employers?
Yes, thank you, Layla. So for Bahrain, the effective date of the resolution was earlier this year, in March this year. So employers would have needed to update the system, submit to the social insurance organization all of the data required, all of the wage information required, and then they're supposed to, within the first 15 days of each month, pay in the relevant contributions to the SIO. There would be penalties imposed in the case of late payment or non-payment. There's an applicable interest rate of 5% on the applicable monthly contributions, and then any failure of payments into the system would also impose further penalties as well. There could also, where employers fail to adhere to the system, there is also a penalty that could potentially be doubled where the offense is repeated as well. But generally, the general stance in Bahrain with the issuance of new laws is that even where the grace period is not met, generally authorities are a bit more lenient in allowing you sufficient time to conform and to adapt to the new framework. But yeah, we urge clients to start on it immediately, because the burden is on the employer to update the social insurance organization system.
Thank you, Yara. For Nour, a question raised by Nassou here is, for ADGM Reem Island, does an LLC with an MOA now need to have an AOA that aligns with the ADGM rules?
Actually, that's a good question as well. So basically, once the company migrates from the mainland to ADGM, the company will be governed and part of the ADGM rules and regulations. So as part of the ADGM rules and regulations, the company must maintain its articles of association. Therefore, the articles of continuance of the company would be in compliance with the ADGM company's regulations. So when it comes to share capital, the director, management, general assembly, and all the terms that are applicable in ADGM would need to be complied with.
Thank you, Nour. For Noff here, the question regarding the Dubai mainland activities, whether the free zone entities can perform those activities that are related to trading and retail business. Is it possible for a free zone entity having a trade license in the free zone to have the trading retail license from DED to perform the direct business in Dubai?
Yeah, so typically direct retailing from the free zone into the mainland is restricted, because generally speaking, if you have a license in the free zone, that license only permits you to conduct commercial activity within the free zone itself. So if you're intending on retailing from the free zone into the UAE mainland, there is a restriction there. And a way to mitigate that restriction is either to incorporate in the mainland itself, or to engage a third-party distributor to then sell the product within the mainland. But now that the restrictions on foreign ownership are waived from the most activities in the UAE mainland, there's no, if you're intending to conduct retail activity, a suggestion would be to just establish the entity in the mainland itself and own it 100% by foreign nationals, and that really mitigates that restriction.
Thank you, Noff. No, that's very clear. In terms of Saudi, we have a question here, Somaia. Can you remind the condition of the 0% withholding under regional headquarter program? So maybe just the percentage reminders there.
Sure. So yeah, the tax incentives rules that has been issued by ZATCA set some requirements to be satisfied in order for the tax incentives to be granted for the RHQs. And one of the elements to be satisfied is that to have the regional headquarters actually funding the operational expenses of the regional headquarter and having at least one general manager in the in Saudi Arabia, with other elements to be satisfied, and the person who asked can our tax team can assist in more details into these tax related matters.
Thank you, Somaia. There's a question here on how they can get in contact with the UAE and KSA teams. So what we'll do is after this call, there'll be a summary document that is sent to all of you attendees, and I'll have the details in. Worst case, if it's not there, then you can look up the names of the panelists on our website, and there are the details on how the email and contact numbers there on the website as well. Now it's we've hit the hour, so we've done very well, I believe, this session. And we thank everyone for raising all of the queries. Again, to conclude, we have a document that will go around with the top questions. So any queries that we didn't respond to, we can respond to later on. I want to thank the whole panel for giving us the insights in their respective jurisdictions. Many thanks to you all, and thank you to the attendees who have joined. We really hope that you found this to be a helpful session. And we hope to see you in our next episode of the series. I mean, each of us have miles and miles more to talk about. We've kept it to the hour to keep it clean, but we will have other sessions. So we really do look forward to seeing you in the future in our future sessions. Thank you, everyone, and have a very good day.
Thank you.